So at this stage, these blocks have been in the kiln just at 110 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 hours. And you can see they have firmed up nicely. Let's see if we can't get a little better view on the end here. Well, the light's just not quite good enough. You can see the pattern in there a little bit. Yeah, so now they're firm. So they can now come out of the cradle and stand by themselves. I often just do that first drying overnight. Just leave it in the kiln running at 110, 115 degrees. If you live in a particularly dry area, then you can probably get away with just leaving them out to air dry. But where I live, it's pretty humid most of the time, so the slow forced drying in the kiln is a good idea. At this stage, I'll start slowly ramping that temperature up. These have, I can feel just a little bit of squish to them. Not much, but just a little bit. So I'm going to proceed slowly for the moment, probably bump that temperature up to, say, 120 or so. And then just check on them periodically, see how they're feeling. Once they start to feel dry and completely firm, then that's when I'll start ramping up towards boiling temperature. Kind of the two key temperatures are somewhere around 150 degrees Fahrenheit, and then again the 212 degrees Fahrenheit boiling temperature. The 150 degree temperature is a little sensitive just because around that temperature the methyl cellulose actually goes out of solution. So you could have a lot of moisture come out very quickly. So it's good to, what we want to do is we want to dry the water out, slowly evaporate it, rather than boil it out or have it juice out, so to speak. You can see some of the little bits on the outside fall off, but at this stage and going forward, the blocks are actually pretty robust, so I don't need to be all that careful with them. So at this stage, I've finished the sort of initial baking drying. So these have been baked up to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and that really that should have driven off all the water, all the moisture in there, but has not started to burn out the methyl cellulose. So at this point, these are very solid, and they're rock hard essentially. And you can see there's been a little bit of distortion in the, this was the end that paper got a little wrinkled up. So a little bit of distortion in the drying process, but we don't have any cracking, no major warping here, And these are still just barely too large to fit in the 2-inch square tubing that I'm going to be using. But let's give you kind of an idea of how things look at this stage, as long as you haven't dried too quickly. We'll see if we can't get a little peek at the pattern. It's hard, it's subtle. It's there. You can see it a little bit, but it is subtle. So like I said, next step will be shaving these down just a little bit and getting them packed into the 2-inch square tubing canisters. So we'll move on to that. So as part of a little experiment here, I actually baked my 2 blocks up to about 450 Fahrenheit. You can see definitely got some temper colors going on, which does show up our pattern a bit better. But I was doing this to see whether there was really additional shrinkage at that temperature. And quite honestly, there's not. I do get a little bit more powder off the outside though. So I would suggest sticking to the 250 degree Fahrenheit bake before loading into the canisters. So as you can see, this is my 2" by 2" tubing, thin wall tubing. It's about a 1/16 wall. So got my base that I'll be welding on there. And now the caps, which these want to be movable. They don't need to be, well, they don't need to just drop through, but they will need to be movable. So as you can see, I've ground this down just a little bit. This one likes to flop around. Ground that down just a little bit so it fits inside. It's not a tight fit. I'm not too worried about that. All I need to do still on these is just quickly pop that 1/16 inch vent hole in the top. And as you can see, these don't quite fit. The outside of this might be friable enough that I'd be able to just force that in, but I'm not going to risk that. So what I'll do is actually just very, very carefully grind the outside until it fits. And both of these, they've shrunk a little bit. This one just happened to. I'm not sure why it shrank in such a way that it's very slightly out of square. So either case, off camera I'll be getting the canisters done up and these pieces fitted, and I'll show you what that next stage looks like as I'm doing sort of final assembly of the canisters prior to firing. So, got these welded up properly. You can see I reground that surface just to make sure this is still going to fit nicely in my system. And you can see I've just slightly resized both these blocks so they fit inside pretty securely. They're both pretty tight in there. And I did that actually just by rubbing the blocks against the grinder. Grinder was not moving. The material at this stage is it's soft enough that it really does not take much. So if you actually grind it, you will almost certainly grind away too much material. And what I'm going to do now, actually before I do that, before I do a little backfill, I'm just going to show, so this is the sleeve that we're going to be using in the next stage when we actually fire and compress these. And you can see, nice easy slip fit in there. Once this is hot and has some forge scale on it, we'll have a much tighter fit. And also at the same time, so this in my little booklet that goes with this video, this is what I refer to as the sleeve. And this is what I refer to as the slug. Great names, right? So basically, what I've done is taken a piece of 2" square stock and ground it down a little bit and put this little guide onto it. So basically, it fits inside my tubing, and then this fits reasonably tightly inside my sleeve. So this guide makes sure that when I start to press, I'm actually inside the top of the canister, pressing down through the middle of it rather than squashing the whole canister. I'm probably, you know, as you saw, there's a little bit of movement in that, so, you know, I might end up slightly off center, but just the ease of pressing the middle, it will find center as long as I'm starting off pretty close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just backfill with a little bit of 1095. Sorry about that noise, probably not real great, a real great noise to be hearing through the video. But so you can see, it's not going to take a lot, and I don't want to actually backfill for volume this way. I'm really just trying to magnetized screwdriver here, not super handy. But basically what I want to do is I'm trying to backfill around the edges just to make sure that I'm tight inside the canister. This way, once I apply pressure and start squeezing this down, I really don't want my my block to have anywhere to go. There will be almost certainly some additional shrinking that goes on as I fire this, and you know, and get it up to welding or sintering temperatures. Because not only will I burn out the rest of the methyl cellulose binder, but I will also be, you know, and we'll save that, I'll do it off camera. So not only will I be burning off the rest of the methyl cellulose binder, but the particles themselves actually sit more tightly together once they start getting sintered. So I've got one of my caps here that I could just drop in there. I want a slightly better seal than that though. So what I'm going to do is just get a little bit of black furnace cement, and I'll spread that around the edges and just get a little, I only want a little bit on here. I don't need much. It just needs to be enough to mostly seal around there. So you can see I'm riding on my center just a little bit. And I've still got a little bit of a gap, and you can complete the sealing process from the top as well. It's a nice thing about this black furnace cement is it is so smooth that you can work it into pretty small gaps, almost like caulk. Okay, so that one's ready to go. I'll get the other one done, and then what I'm going to do is bake these up to 550 Fahrenheit, and from there they go to the forge. So the forge is just about up to temperature now. We're at just under 1200 degrees Celsius, so just about 2200 degrees Fahrenheit. What I'm going to do before I go grab one of the canisters is I'm just going to put my forge on idle. It'll cool off a little bit in there. You can see it's dropping some. But this way, it's not quite as much of a shock to the canister when I set it in front of the forge. So the canister has been baking at 550 for about an hour. And as you'll recall, I had already baked the clay block itself up to 450. So pretty quickly here we should start to get some fume out the top of the can, and that'll be the methyl cellulose burning off. Since I've already baked it as hot as I have, there's not going to be nearly as much. So might not get too much, but it is a good idea to always preheat in front of the forge like this. To if you do still have stuff in there that needs to burn out, you really don't want it to be shooting powder all over the inside of your forge. Getting much, if any, fume or flame out the top, which is unusual. So obviously that 550 degree bake has done a good job for me. And yeah, you can see every once in a while there'll be just a tiny flicker of flame out the top. So here in just a second I'll be popping this in the forge to bring it up to sintering temperature. See, I'm getting just a little bit of flame as the heat penetrates into the center of the block. So there was obviously just a little bit of methyl cellulose left in there. I do expect that this baking off has also probably left a little bit of carbon residue in there, a bit of soot, and anything, any of that doesn't burn off will just get incorporated into the steel. We've got basically no flame there at this point. Every once in a while, a tiny flicker. But I'm going to go ahead and pop this in. Just want to make sure that it is sitting upright in there, sitting vertically. You can see I'm not getting some gigantic spurt of powder out the top, so we're in good shape. So now I just bring the temperature back up to sintering temperature of 1200 centigrade or 2200 Fahrenheit, and let it soak for a little bit, about 10 minutes, and we'll be ready to press.